need a funny beginning because we're about to go deep. I'm about to reveal to you something about manifestation concepts, law of attraction teachings, law of assumption teachings that you probably are not going to hear just about anywhere else on YouTube. And one reason I'm going to be the one sharing it with you is just because I've been at this stuff for a long time and I've been interested in spirituality for a long time. And I'm basing my experiences not just upon myself, but having worked with hundreds of clients on these kind of issues over the last decade plus, as well as having written multiple books that were bestsellers in the genre, and really delve deep into subjects that, generally speaking, people just don't want to touch or know nothing about. This is not information for people who are new to this subject, unless you already have a lot of spiritual background. This is for people who are spiritually invested, psychologically invested in changing their lives and feeling better. If that is you, I can help you. Link is in the description for a free download of my book, The Law of Attraction Simplified, as well as a link for a free 20-minute consultation. No bullshit, not a sales call. I simply will try to help you if you're serious about this stuff. And, if you want to talk about coaching, we can talk about that later. But what I do is get deep with people about this subject, meaning stress management, manifestation concepts, and spirituality. And what I have found is that most people do not want to go deep. They say they do, but they don't actually want to do it. And that's what this video is going to talk about a little bit and hopefully clarify for some of you. Because I know many people watching this channel, most people watching this channel probably are not newbies. My content is not newbie friendly usually. We just go too deep too quickly and people can't handle it. Because we all are guilty of spiritually bypassing and making things seem far easier than they actually are. But I try my best to call myself out, and I try in a gentle way to call others out when they do that. And this manifestation space is rife with that kind of bypassing. And if you recognize that, you can stop falling victim to it as much. And if you stop falling victim to it as much, ironically, these ideas will actually start working in your life better, and you'll be able to integrate them better into your life. Again, that's what my book, The Law of Attraction Simplified, discusses in detail. What I have found, again, not only for myself, but just speaking to hundreds, if not, I don't know, maybe thousands, certainly hundreds and hundreds of people over the years in regards to these subjects, is that most of these great teachers, their ideas sound wonderful when you hear them. And by great teachers, I do not mean most of the people on YouTube talking about them. Some of them sound great too, don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about, the quote-unquote masters, no one's really a master, of articulating this stuff. The people we talk about on this channel. Neville Goddard, Florence Scovel Shinn, Catherine Ponder. We don't talk about Abraham Hicks, but someone like Abraham Hicks. We don't talk about Joe Dispenza that much, but someone like Joe Dispenza. People who are popular and that have really interesting things to say about changing your life from the inside out. I would think that a lot of you watching this channel have had success, at least somewhat, doing that by following that advice. I know I have. But what you will not hear in most places is that success is unlikely to continue long term unless you adjust and modify and integrate those teachings in a way that is not explained by those teachers, generally speaking. In other words, if you just read Neville, right, or just listen to Neville, which is I say that jokingly because if you go on Neville Reddit, people, the answer to so many questions is just read Neville, as if Neville never had any problems and had everything figured out. If you just follow a teacher, whether you're listening to them, reading them, and kind of just applying their information dogmatically, it might work for you. But is it going to work for you long term? Extremely unlikely. Because what works for Joe Dispenza or Abraham Hicks or for Neville is not necessarily what's going to work for you. It's pointing to something. Me in the car right now, I'm pointing to something. But what that something is going to be different for each one of us. What that process is going to look like is going to be different for each one of us. And in my opinion, what a really good teacher or coach or counselor or therapist or shaman or whatever healer does is they help you realize what the path is for you. Not what their philosophy is. They don't make you a dogmatist. They make you more open and creative. They support you so you can change yourself. And the ugly truth, the big point of this particular car video by Papa Bear Tim is after a decade plus of being into these ideas and testing them, as Neville always liked to say, and trying them out and seeing what works for me, what does not work for me, what makes me succeed and feel better and helps improve my family life, my health, my finances, and what does not help me do those things. What I have found for myself, and then what I have kind of confirmed by talking and working with people over the years. And again, this confirmation is based upon the fact that we are all different. But what I have kind of confirmed from others and confirmed for myself, for sure, is that most of these teachings, meaning LOA teachings, law of assumption, law of attraction teachings, if you think those things are two different things, you're on the wrong channel. They're not. What Neville was talking about is what, most of these other teachers were talking about, at least the vast majority of the time. Anyway, all those teachings, for the most part, the kind of teachings I talk about in the Law of Attraction Explored, Law of Attraction Explored, my podcast, the deep spiritual LOA teachings, even those teachings, you are going to find that most of them do not hold up under pressure long term. Most of this stuff does not hold up, guys, under pressure. And that's why, really, you don't hear more genuine success stories of people doing this stuff for years and changing their lives, over the course of decades by applying just one person's advice. Or, one, even like new thought advice in general. Or law of attraction advice in general. Because it's not that fucking simple. The integration process is going to make it in all likelihood for you, if it's anything like my integration process, where you realize, holy shit, a lot of these teachers were very helpful at the point where I encountered them. And they have some wonderful stuff to say that I benefited from. And then you basically outgrow them, or evolve past them, or no longer find it necessary to really refer to them that often. And you're going to realize that a lot of what people say is helpful at one point, but then really isn't that helpful, or maybe even that accurate when you look back at it. Like, for instance, let me give you an example in my own life. One of the main reasons that I got into these ideas is because I wanted to improve my financial situation. I was in real estate. I wanted to get out of real estate. And by applying these ideas, primarily Neville's ideas, but also people like Florence Scovel Shinn, Richard Doss, Joseph Murphy, I was able to, by relaxing more, by imagining more positively, having more free time, more flexibility, to get out of real estate within a short period of time, within 6 months of encountering these ideas. And starting to make money basically passively, and then entirely passively for months and months on end, just through books and through things that I was not actively working on, and having a lot more free time. My wife and I had a ton of free time to travel, to just hang out, to write, to do things we liked, to study, to read, etc. Much more free time than the average person. And my life, in many ways, up until I had kids at least, was like that. And when I had kids, I had less free time, but I had still a ton of flexibility. And to this day, I have a ton of flexibility compared to most people you meet. But the financial advice that affected me and helped me so much from people like Neville, Joseph Murphy, Florence Scovel Shinn, and even the financial advice that I discuss in length in my playlist, I'll put a link above. I think it was called, what was it? I think the Invisible Supply playlist. Those are some of the best prosperity type of new thought teachings I know of. Again, I'll put a link above. Really profound, you could say, metaphysical, if you want to use that word, psychological advice about how to change your perception towards money. And, that changed my perception towards money, those ideas, those teachers. And I wrote about a lot of that. I made that playlist, and I also wrote about that in my book, Money, Your Friend. But I have to tell you, after more than 10 years trying to apply that financial advice and applying a lot of it much in a way that was effective, so I felt much better about money, that I've dropped most of it, even the good stuff. It doesn't stand the test of time, and most of it doesn't stand up under pressure. Like, I can tell you, when it comes to most of these LOA ideas, particularly around a loaded subject such as like finances or abundance, or simply supply, as I like to call it. In the LOA space, the only people I really refer to constantly for that is someone like Joel Goldsmith, maybe the best of Richard Dotz, like the kind of stuff he talks about in Banned Money Secrets. And some people in that Invisible Supply playlist, but like, I don't go to them. I really only go to Goldsmith, maybe H. Emily Cady, a little bit of Richard Dotz, and that's it. Because I've evolved past all that other stuff. And that might sound silly or pretentious, but it's just the truth. Most of like that financial advice, let alone the other advice for like, manifesting, I don't know, certain things or whatever, it's not something you can duplicate again and again. It's not as easy as the teachers say. It's not. What I like about Joel Goldsmith so much is he says this is not easy. Because that's the truth, guys. It's not easy. Otherwise, there would be more success. Success leaves clues. And if you look at it like that and realize that if I want to integrate these ideas deeply into my life, this is a form of work. It might be inner work, not outer work. And if you look at it like that and you start to enjoy the work, as I do, and as many of the clients I've worked with over the years do, that's a game changer. But you come to the place where you realize most of this is not easy. Most of this is rather difficult, or far more people would do it. As I always like to say, like in the business space, guys, entrepreneurs are very flexible and open-minded a lot of times to make money, especially these days. If this was as easy as these popular YouTubers say in terms of changing your financial future, so many of those people would apply the advice more effectively than they do, but they don't. And that's because basically, like, if you're an entrepreneur, you're better off usually following business advice, good business and mindset advice, as opposed to this LOA advice, which is much more complicated and much more inner driven and quote unquote spiritual. And you could easily say the same thing for health or relationships. I do a ton of relationship coaching with Marvin Daniels. And most of the relationship coaching advice I give is simply psychological advice about relationships. And I know more about the LOA stuff than most people, especially in the specific person SP world. But I don't usually give advice that's based on that. I give advice based upon relationship psychology. And for health, it's great to try to heal yourself using these spiritual ideas, these metaphysical ideas. And, there's a psychological truth to them that's undeniable if you study Emile Coué. But at the same time, if I'm sick, you think I'm not going to the doctor and going to just try to heal myself like some Christian scientists do? Absolutely fucking not. I'm going to take advantage of the wonderful medical technology and, applications we have these days in modern medicine. I'm not going to try to affirm my way or visualize my way or pray my way through it in all likelihood. I might be doing that in adjunct to it or as well. But I'm not just doing one. When my wife was in labor with our second kid, and there was and it seemed like there were some complications, we weren't at home having her give birth there. I was affirming, I was praying, I was talking to myself the whole time, but we were in the hospital with great medical care too. And then the problems were just disappeared like that in an instant. But it wasn't just because I was praying. It was also because the medical folks were there. That's how this stuff really works. This is when this stuff gets real. Most people online want to sell you half-truths, sensationalized stories, success stories that are only a small fraction of what actually happened, because you don't know what happened to this person before, leading up to it, and you don't usually know what happens after the fact, after the success happens, because life goes on. And so you're getting a very fragmented, sensationalized bit. And what is important, in my opinion, most of the time, if we are really into these ideas, is wholeness. And that's not sensationalized. And part of that is realizing most of these great teachings that excite us initially, eventually we're going to drop them. And that's a good thing. It doesn't mean we can't respect them, love them, refer back to them occasionally, but it doesn't mean we're going to live by them or with them all the time. And you come to realize the only one who can really teach you is yourself in the best sense. And that these teachers and teachings are just guideposts, signposts pointing you back to you. And if you want help doing that, as I said, I'd be happy to help you. Link is in the description for a short free consultation and for my book, The Law of Attraction Simplified, as well as all my other books. If you have questions, let me know. I'm going to put another helpful video talking about depth below. You can watch that next if you want to. Enjoy.